Now, I'm pleased to introduce our first presentation of the day with the title Integral Thinking for the Development of the Education System of Society, which has been prepared by Professor Valentina Ilganayeva. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, she can't be present with us today, but has requested us to read her presentation. Miss Kathy Perello from the education team will read for us.
Thank you. Integral Thinking for the Development of Society's Educational System by Professor Valentina Ilganayeva. As an introduction, it is important to emphasize the significance of methodological reflection as a necessary behavior style for modern researchers, practitioners, and managers. I wish all conference participants an interesting and productive time. Let us now turn to a summary of the topic. In science, there was up until a certain point a dissection of the world perceived by the observing subject. Science itself rose from this experience in both its experimental, practical, and abstract speculative forms. All modern scientific knowledge is built from these basic components. Nowadays, the boundaries of perception of this structure have become blurred and are practically impossible to represent systematically by humans. However, I dare to affirm that the solution to this issue is not directly related to technology or artificial intelligence solutions. Rather, it requires a change in our attitude towards scientific and technological progress, and in how we intend to use its achievements. This requires a general purification of a change in the observer's position in order to see clearly the image of this scientific knowledge and fill it with new meaning. The concept and definition of integration form the basics of integral thinking. Integration is commonly understood as the process of creating an inseparably interconnected and unified whole. However, despite the popularity of the integral approach, it still remains outside of the public consciousness. The development of the ability to think integrally should be viewed as the goal of applying the integral approach in both the theory and practice of knowledge and activity. Mastery of integral thinking involves solving several tasks. 1, coming to a common understanding of the basic content of the concept of integration. 2, forming stable thought forms regarding the use of an integral approach. 3, studying its basic parameters, describing the basic principles of implementing an integral approach in research and activity. A multi-aspect analysis of the definitions of the concepts of integration allowed us to identify its essential features, which are associated with the unification into a whole of any separate parts of systematic formations. At that time, the presence of processuality, processes of separation, addition, renewal, and statics, states of unity, integrity, and completeness is revealed in it. In comparison with the oppositional concept of disintegration, the vector of integration, the direction of the process, is revealed, which is associated with the unification into a single whole of previous heterogeneous parts and elements, or their separation, fragmentation into parts or elements. That is, it can be assumed that the vector, the direction, can be positive or negative, plus or minus. We relate these characteristics to the nominative ones. Thus, in order to consider any research or practice as integral, we must start from some common concepts, conditions, principles, parameters that characterize it as integral. During the methodological reflection on the scientific concept of integration, we were able to expand, reproduce, and supplement the parameters that describe the phenomena of integration. In particular, systematic characteristics and dependencies of integration were identified. Belonging to a certain system, physical, biological, and any social. Function allows us to consider the relationship between integration and the system. Goal allows us to clarify what the integration, unification, or change of the system state is relative to, from amorphous to integrity. Vector, this characteristic allows us to consider the movements of integration, the direction towards which state it occurs, towards integration or disintegration, which is related to their essential development. And result. The result of integration is the emergence of some integrity, which acquires new properties and relationships between updated elements. The procedural characteristics of integration, which included phase states and stages of development, formed a special block for the study of integration. The parameters we have identified allow us to expand our understanding of integration as a methodological construct of thinking. They make it possible to consider phenomena of integration as a process and states that are in resonance with the universal law of development, which tends toward achieving an equilibrium state of all parts of the system within and its external relations with other systems. The result of this process is also called integrity, harmony. Our understanding of integration is supplemented by the inclusion of its spatial characteristics known as horizontal, diagonal, internal, and external integration. In our systematic consideration of integration parameters, we also include the configuration of the shape of organized system elements, integration levels, and parameters of the integration process environment. In this context, physical, informational, biological, physiological, psychological, and social environments all were studied. Thus, the methodological feasibility of applying integral methodology as a universal scientific tool for knowledge and practice in the fields of economics, technology, management, medicine, institutional spheres, and international relations was examined. The significance of integration parameterization lies in the fact that the structure of the conceptual field of integration enables us to form stable psychological structures of our thinking regarding integration phenomena. Correspondingly, the method of an integral approach can be more clearly defined through integral methodology. As an example of a developed methodology, a step-by-step algorithm for studying and analyzing integration is proposed, which includes the following steps. Step 1, determining the nature of the object under study, its systemic features relative to the conditions of its existence and functioning. Step 2, establishing the boundaries of the studied system or its parts. Step 3, determining the vector of integration consideration or its imperative goal. Step 4, establishing the systematic form within which integration processes are carried out. Step 5, establishing the structural and functional arrangement of the considered system or form. Step 6, establishing the parameters, characteristics of the system and its elements. Step 7, identifying the elements of interaction within the system and beyond. Step 8, establishing the characteristic stages of integration and the features of their implementation in the corresponding conditions of existence of systems, their forms and functions, with respect to synchronizing development processes to achieve the target vector. And last of all, step 9, establishing indications of the processes regarding the achievement of the goals of system integrity. As a conclusion, we suggest several propositions about the use of an integrated approach to the sphere of upbringing and education. All that has been stated above can and should be fully applied in the sphere of upbringing and education and implemented in pedagogical practice. The functional purpose of integration in this sphere is also intended to ensure the integrity and stability of the education system. Any systemic parts of education can be included in the integrated analysis, such as upbringing, preschool education, school, university, informal education institutes, etc. There can be individual participants in the process of upbringing and education: students, teachers, parents, educators, education managers, stakeholders, etc. One can only speak about an integrated education system with the consideration and description of the relevant parameters of the integrated matrix of the educational environment and the establishment of integral connections between the parts and agents of the education system. Specifically, the systematic parameters of integration in education require their own description of the educational environment. These include goals, systemic interaction in educational structures of different levels, groups of participants in educational communication, professional personnel, theory, methodology, educational content of different purposes, educational technologies also. Management, education standards, their synchronization relative to the goal and result of upbringing and education is the main condition for ensuring the normal functioning of the educational system and the development of humanity. Overall, the implementation of the functional purpose of integration in the activities, cognition, and interaction of people occurs through positive convergence of thinking and perception of reality. The integrity of concepts about integration is part of the worldview basis for the further program of synthesis of rational and sensory knowledge in the conditions of the formation of integral social consciousness. Professor, suggests that the conference participants pay attention to the fact that the proposed approach to the integrated methodology and practice of their application fundamentally changes the understanding of processes and conditions relative to common interpretations, such as integral medicine, integral education, integral management, and integral marketing, etc. Professor thanks you for your attention.
And thank you for that fascinating speech. And thank you, Kathy, for reading it. I should have given this background before, but I wanted to give a little background on Professor Ilganayeva. She's a teacher, a doctor of historical sciences, and a professor with a remarkable record of accomplishments in her field. She's authored nearly 200 scientific publications. She's the founder and leader of her own scientific school. She supervised the preparation and defense of 4 doctoral theses and 20 PhD theses. She's also served as the head of the international project Economic and Other Knowledge in the context of transformation of international social activities management and communication for the UNESCO Department of the National Technical University of Agriculture in Ukraine and Czech Republic. And she's participated in several international research projects in Denmark and Poland. Her scientific and professional interests revolve around the problems of social interaction, mediology, and theoretical and methodological problems of upbringing and education. Her research is based on universal approaches to identifying proportionality and harmony in the development processes in the nature-human society system. Her work also includes the concept of social interaction as a system-forming element in the components of human life, activity, and cognition, as well as the description of the media space as an integration, limiting state of the communication subsystem of society. And with that, I'm going to invite everyone, if you had any questions during the presentation, you can go ahead and write to the professor at the email we're posting in the chat. It's conference.iwri@gmail.com. So again, those will be posted in the chat and the professor will answer later.